Good morning, viewers. This is one of those times in our lives when, well, we didn't think it was going to come. Sometimes there is a greater need that's bigger than our individual selves. And as they say, I think the saying is that sometimes the sum of all the parts is bigger. And so I'm one of those parts that's bigger than my individual self, making a contribution to NTN through the mid-morning show. My name is Judy Deterville and has been for many years. And I'm sure people are thinking, Judy Deterville still. Yes, indeed. That is my name. And I have had the fortune of wearing many hats. And so this time in our history gives me another opportunity to wear another hat. And I want to set a different tone. I actually forgot that today was the 31st of March because, so many things are happening and coming at us all the time in the last 3 weeks, I would say. So it's an important note to remember that normally this would have been what we call in Creole, Takawem. It's our dry season and it's the time of Lent. And I've forgotten this, although there has been the strong sort of push from the church and other organizations that follow the Lenten calendar to remind the parishioners and the faithful that this is a time of Lent. But we still forget because there's so much coming at us every single day, numbers and information and news, and of course the unspoken word for now, the C word for now, which I'll talk about a bit later on. But this is Takawem, and traditionally it signaled the Lenten period just ahead of the Easter. And I was fortunate because I listened to the Sunday Mass at home for the first time in my life, I want to say, and it was the Archbishop giving the Mass. And he reminded us that this coming Sunday is going to be Passion Sunday, which is generally the longest sermon in the history of the Catholic Church during the Easter time. And I remember standing during that and being very tired. So my first thought, of course, on the lighter side is, well, this Sunday I'm going to be sitting down during this longest sermon, longest time of the Mass for Easter. But that's just on the very lighter side, because we need to be light sometimes, especially at this time. So now we're in a new normal, and it's COVID-19. This is the C word. It is the coronavirus. This really is our new normal, and it's the state of emergency. It's curfew. So as I was prepping for this program, I was talking with an elderly gentleman, well, the son of an elderly gentleman. The gentleman was born in 1933. And so I wanted to know whether he could remember a time in our history when there was ever curfew declared in Saint Lucia's history. And he actually thought about it a lot and got back to me a couple hours later in our conversation and said that he could not remember a time when there was a curfew in Saint Lucia, not even during World War II, he said. He says that there were blackouts, but he could not remember a time of curfew. And my mother also knows the history, remembers the history, and she thought similarly that she could not remember a time either when there was a curfew in St. Lucia's history. She remembers that there were times when people had to blacken their windows, put black cloths on the windows to kill the light, so that in the event of any overhead flying, that no house would have been pinpointed or fingered out. But none of them could remember a time of curfew in our history. So this is really a new period for all of us, almost a frightening time for all of us as well, but certainly new behaviors. And so we want to really hammer home the Prime Minister's recent statement of suspending liquor licenses. And I want to stick a pin here as well, because liquor licenses, again, would have been sort of a familiar time in the Lenten period when many, many, many years ago, the rum shops would have been closed because that was the time of internal introspection and so on. So, but more recently, rum shops are open, bars are open, people are selling liquor. But now this takes us back to that time where, again, for the first time in my history, liquor licenses have been suspended, and we are literally under a stay-at-home order from the state until further notice. How did we get here? I've really been trying to find a defining moment in January and even in February that would sort of give me well, this is when it started. And this is not business as usual. It's not business as usual, and we need to understand that. So what I've just discovered again is that our first reported case of COVID-19, not in St. Lucia, but internationally, would have been on the 10th of January. And I suspect that even then, we did not necessarily understand or begin to realize that this was going to be our lives over the days from January the 10th to present. But it is. And so I want now to bring in my guest, very special, Mr. Winston Anderson. He is he's wearing two hats. So he's the chairman of the TEF, that's the Tourism Enhancement Fund, and he's also the managing director of Sandals Resort in Saint Lucia. Now, Mr. Anderson, hello.
Hello, Judy.
Good morning and welcome.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here.
It has taken this to bring you to NTN Studios. I don't think you've ever been to NTN Studios.
Actually, I've never been.
And so it was interesting because when we were talking about this, you were asking me, I want to just sort of give the other side of you. You were sort of trying to remember where NTN was located.
That's
and
true.
So you found it safely and got here on time, so I want to thank you for that. Now, in your role as managing director of Sandals Resort in St. Lucia, how has that brought you in direct contact with COVID-19?
Well, before I answer that, Judy, I just want to emphasize what you said, that the world, COVID-19 has changed the world. Certainly in my lifetime, I've never seen anything like this. And it's interesting, as you said that, because yesterday I was speaking I checked on a uncle of mine in Jamaica who was very elderly, to see how he was. And he too said to me, well, in his 80s, going to his 90s, and he said in his lifetime he has never experienced anything like this.
Yeah.
He has seen a number of things, but nothing compared to this, where literally this has touched the world.
Exactly.
And it's just so different from everything else. So to answer the question, as someone who is very involved day to day in the hotel operation.
Yes.
We have 3 hotels in Saint Lucia. I am on the front line, so to speak, so I interact directly with guests every day. I interact very importantly with our team members every day. And it has been a frightening, sobering and enlightening, and a period that it allows you to truly reflect.
Yes.
I've had to become counselor for the guests during the early stage, because believe it or not, and I'm sure a lot of my colleagues across St. Lucia saw that before it truly started hitting home to us. It was hitting home to a lot of the other bigger countries.
Right. And those big countries are our source markets.
As our source market. And so we had a lot of those guests. I was sharing just earlier that there were some who actually was afraid to go back home.
Right.
And afraid for various reasons, because some were elderly, some had health issues, and just what was happening at home. And so you had to calm them. But also one of the things that we did very quickly was that we were very vigilant. We started ensuring that we practice the hygiene aspect, the sanitation, the sanitizer became the most popular thing.
Exactly.
And, our organization, like many of the other hotels organization I know, being in the St. Lucia Hotel and Hospitality Association, I know that all the hotels started practicing quickly and putting in safe practices in place. And a lot of education, I can say. I'm proud to say that across the group, in St. Lucia, amongst the hotels, there's a lot of education and sensitization going in place. So we were...
and this sensitization is for the team members within the industry.
The team members within the industry. And I think, you know, I said out of every bad, there's tremendous good. And I think what we've seen that has happened across the industry is that the awareness, hygiene, safe practices have gone to a completely new level. And I think it's going to be a new. But it doesn't mean
we've ever stopped practicing those measures.
Absolutely not.
Right.
But it has just that it has taken it to another level, which is great. we were able to manage our guests and quickly made the decision that the best thing to do was to get them back to their countries. And so we started doing that for two reasons. One, because you could see what was coming, that more borders were being closed, more countries were saying to people, come back home.
Correct.
And very importantly, we wanted to ensure that our team members were safe.
Right.
And so we started on that process like everybody else. And so we were able to get all of our guests out and started the close down on the unfortunate, the very painful procedure of having to close your hotel. I mean, it was, and we stuck out until the last minute because we were still very optimistic.
Talk about sandals for a little bit in that instance in terms of the history of sandals, not just in Saint Lucia but in the Caribbean, and has any sandals resort ever had to close, as far as you can recall?
Certainly not. I mean, we've had to close for hurricanes, we've had to close for disaster, but I still remember very clearly probably one of the big world impact was 9/11. And I do remember it very vividly. I was actually on vacation and I was watching TV and I got a call from our superior to say they need everybody back at work. And so when other hotels were closing, we at the time decided that, no, we're not going to close. Even in the midst of the world coming to a standstill, we decided that, no, we were going to go forward. So, no, I've never seen
anything like this,
where we've had to close down the company, the industry, completely.
Yeah. So talk about that in relation to the team members, and again, not just in terms of Sandals team members, but generally industry team members island-wide. Talk about that a little bit.
Well, for me, every time I think about that, Judy, I get emotional.
Yes.
Because beyond the direct team members that work within the industry, the Caribbean, and if I take it home to Saint Lucia, our farmers, our taxi drivers, our vendors, our musicians, the list goes on. And the direct team members rely solely on tourism. And so, me, like all the other hoteliers in Saint Lucia, I know how painful it was to truly have to close your doors and to see the livelihood of these people who are so committed, so loyal, really have to be sent home. It certainly for me was probably one of the most painful experiences that I've had to do. And to speak to so many of our stakeholders, whether it be the tour operators who have been loyal, the taxi drivers, and all of them who really seen something that they've worked so hard and see the door closing.
Yes.
It's unlike something I've never seen.
Do you think we could have anticipated this at all? Because I mean, we've been talking on a Saint Lucia context about diversification of the economy, because you know that we've been based on bananas forever, and so we've understood historically the impact of a one-crop economy. Is there anything we could have done to sort of?
You know, I've given that a lot of thought. But when you look at a lot of much more powerful economies that really this thing have brought them to their knees. To their knees, basically. Literally. So, yes, you can always diversify more. And I think what this is doing actually is that I think it is creating a new norm. I think out of this you're going to be seeing some new entrepreneurs. You're going to be seeing some creativity that you've never seen before. Correct. But I don't know if there's something else that we could have done to cushion what we're seeing. Because the truth is, it not only has it touched industry, it has touched manufacturing, it has touched every single aspect, banking, you name it. Yes. So no matter who you are or where you work,
there is an
COVID-19 has an impact on you.
Interesting. Okay, now we understand that in terms of the movement of staff again, and that's also something that you hadn't actually lived through in terms of having to say to your staff, well, you have to go home. How did you manage that? How was that process managed?
Well, and I'm sure each hotel, each company across Saint Lucia would have managed their dynamics differently. And I really want to say that my heart goes out to every single one of our hard-working hotel and industry workers, and by extension, the entire industry, because it's a difficult time for them. So many of them depend on this on a day-to-day basis. We took the decision that we wanted to cushion as best as possible for our team members. And so we were able to extend to them a percentage of their salary, their basic salary, to keep them through. We did vacation period. And one of the things that we decided to do was to look what we call a care package. And so every single team member was provided with a basket or hamper to take home. Not enough to keep them through, naturally, but enough to get them started. And we have kept in touch with them every day. We have different communication channels. This is another interesting thing that this has done, is that it has now built chat groups, and each one is supporting each other.
Yes.
So while some of our team members may currently be in Soufrière, in Chazelle, we're keeping in touch with them daily.
You find that's a lifeline for them?
It's a lifeline for them. And I mean, I myself look forward to last night after midnight, I was on the group because people were sending encouraging messages to each other. So it's an amazing thing to see what's happening.
Okay, I think our time is running out, unfortunately. I know that you have so much more that you can talk about. We'll go to a break and we'll come back to you in just a little while. You're watching the Mid-Morning Show with Judy Deterville. My guest in studio is Mr. Winston Anderson. He is the Managing Director for Sandals Resort in Saint Lucia and also wearing the hat of the TEF Chairman in Saint Lucia. We'll be right back. Right.
In a world. In a world. In a world where germs are widespread, comes a group of superhero germ busters, the germaphores.
We spend most of our time fighting germs, every day of the week. After I play, I wash my hands. Before I eat, I wash my hands. After I play with my puppy, I wash my hands. I cover my sneezes with my forearm or elbow when I am in public. And I cover my cough to avoid spreading dangerous germs. We are the germaphores, germ-busting superheroes. You can be too. Always wash your hands and cover your sneeze and cough. Let's stop the spread of menacing germs.
We'll be back, germaphores, with more powerful germs.
And we will be waiting to prevent you from spreading.
Welcome back. This is the Mid-Morning Show with me, Judy Deterville. My guest in studio at this time is Mr. Winston Anderson, Managing Director, Sandals Resorts in Saint Lucia, giving an interesting insight into the hotel industry in Saint Lucia and how it has been impacted and how it has dealt with, or I should say, the response, NTN being the command center for COVID-related information in Saint Lucia. Good morning again, Mr. Anderson. So we were talking and you were giving an interesting insight into the communication chat group that has been set up, certainly for your team members. And I imagine that you're talking with other hoteliers as well who are...
Yes, we also have a chat group. Naturally, the Hotel Association, we have one, or the Hospitality Association, we have one. And then we have a resort managers. So we're able to share information, we're able to speak to each other, and to provide support to each other. So these communication channels have become extremely important, or even more important than they were.
Okay. Now I'm being told that my other guest is coming in shortly. He won't be coming in, and this is important to state as well, so that at any one time, for example, there are 3 of us literally in the studio right now, and I know that this studio has the capacity to seat at least, 40, 50 people at any one time, and it has happened when there's breaking news that there's been a press conference and the room is full of people. But in terms of taking the precautions, I have 1 guest at a time, and there's another guest waiting in the wings to come in, and there's 1 camera person in studio as well. So, and of course the sanitizer is here, and so we are trying ourselves to maintain the important sanitary measures. And I must throw Mr. Anderson under the bus and say to him that I did ask, in terms of your own health,
Yes.
before you came in today, that
Right.
you feel okay, that you haven't had a recent cough, that you're not necessarily putting us at risk in studio, you're not sneezing, and you said that you would share that with us as well.
Yes, well, yes, you did, in fact, call me before I came to check me out, so to speak. So, no, Judy, because I think it's important, and I think we all have a responsibility now to practice that social distance. I think we have a responsibility to respect what the authorities have put in place, the curfew, to monitor your signs and your symptoms.
Yes.
And for me, certainly, I have no cough, no sneezing, none of the same, because I truly watch and monitor what are the symptoms.
Yes.
And no, and I certainly keep monitoring very closely to
Correct.
ensure. But I want to really truly drive home the message, the importance of practicing social distance and the protocols that have been established by the Ministry of Health and Wellness.
Yes.
Because it's the only way, I
Yes.
think,
Yes.
that we're going to be able to truly keep this thing under control.
I think they've given us an extra 5 minutes. So, and something just popped into my head as well, in terms of monitoring from a legal border perspective is sort of under control. I was having a discussion with a couple of the medical people from the medical profession, and what's coming out is that, you know, people are gaining access through illegal entry, and that could put us at risk as well. What are your thoughts on that?
It's sad. It is sad, and it is what it is really driving home to me is again the level of irresponsible
Behavior.
people that we still have, and that we still have some of us who are more responsible, more mature, have a responsibility to educate, to continue to encourage these people not to do it.
Right.
Because what they do not understand, and I use the word they do not understand, because I cannot believe that they understand it and still do it, is that they're putting their loved ones, the very people that I know they care about,
Yes.
they're putting them at risk by doing this. So my appeal to everyone is to not to do that, because when you get into the community, the one thing you don't want is a community outbreak.
Right.
Because then it puts so much strain on the already strained health system. And I talk about the health system. I really have to commend the authorities, the CMO, the Ministry of Health, Tourism, the first response team, the police, and everyone. I mean, you see them putting out their very best. You see them actively at work. And the information that we've been getting is tremendous.
Yes.
And so I really want to say that. And just by ending by saying that I think the private sector, I've heard it, certainly the Saint Lucia Hotel and Hospitality Association, the resort managers, and the private sector in general is rallying together. I'm aware of a number of initiatives.
Before you go into those initiatives, we'll take a quick break, or maybe not at the moment. I think we can continue. Yes, we can continue. Yes, go ahead then.
Yeah, I'm aware of a number of initiatives that are being looked at, being planned at the moment, with the private sector, with the government, to truly help those thousands of people who are displaced, but most importantly, those who truly cannot and is in a position right now where they would not normally have been able to help themselves. So
Correct.
they're even more at risk than the others.
Yes.
And so I think this is the time when some of us who are a little bit more fortunate, a little bit better placed, should now rise to the occasion and to truly rally as one nation, as one people, as one team, to truly work together to help everyone to come through this.
Just before we close, just one quick question. Can you speak to the issue, the assistance, I should say, that hoteliers have been able to donate containers of food to NEMO to redistribute to the communities? Are you aware of that as yet?
I'm aware of a plan, as I said, through the various sections of the private sector.
Okay.
I know the chamber and other sector is actively working on that. I know the government, along with the private sector, is actively looking at a food feed program.
Okay.
So, and that is well on its way where that has been looked at. So I'm aware of a number of initiatives that have been worked on.
So I guess as time passes, you can probably come back on to talk some more, or certainly to recommend other people who can then speak more directly to those initiatives as well. We'd be happy to have you on. Just one thing, I mean, this is really a platform where you can speak to at least 1,800 team members who have access to other people again in communities. And what's the final message that you want to leave with those team members? Team members?
I want to say to certainly our 1,800 team members, and by extension to the thousands of hotels that I know, we put a tremendous amount of time, money, and effort into training. We have some of the very best talents out there, and I know other hotels have done similar things. So I say to my team members first that I want you all to be productive during this time. I want you to use the training that you've been given, the talent that I know you have, the expertise at your disposal to truly help to sensitize, to educate, and to help others. And the other hotel workers, there's some great talent in Saint Lucia. Now is the time to find a creative way to use it so that we can benefit from it.
But in all of that, first priority to stay at home.
First priority to stay at home, and I'm seeing some creative things happening. I saw one of our own DJ doing something from his home and posting online, so he was entertaining the other team members through our chat group again. And so if we can get things like that nationwide. I saw a gym instructor doing something where other folks, I saw my wife in front of the TV exercising. And these are some of the things. So you can still be active and stay at home to practice social distance.
Correct.
So that will be my final message to it.
Thank you. Thank you very much. In-studio guest, Mr. Winston Anderson, directly speaking to some of his team members from Sandals and also making an emotional appeal to other team members. I mean, if I can, just from a Sandals perspective only and across the Caribbean, the roughly 15,000 team members, yes? And if each of these people is from a family of 4,
over 15,000 now, actually.
Correct, yes. So, and that's just Sandals.
Yes.
And in Saint Lucia, there are over 15 hotels, right? And so the numbers of people impacted by this sort of a message is tremendous.
It's tremendous.
And the knock-on effect, the domino effect also is amazing. So thanks again for tuning in. For now, with my first guest, Winston Anderson, we'll be right back shortly with our second guest. You're watching The Midnight Show. My name is
It's power bike time!
Hey, you need to cover your mouth. Don't you know about the coronavirus?
It's not a joke, it's a serious thing.
True that. What's coronavirus anyway?
The coronavirus is a group of viruses that causes the common cold. In more severe cases, it's like the flu.
Really? So are you saying that this is not a new virus?
No, it isn't new. It's a new strain. That's why some people say novel coronavirus. Yes, look at it like a family who just had a new baby.
I get it now. So how is it spread?
Through the air, like coughing and sneezing, touching objects, surfaces with the virus on it, touching your face, your eyes, your nose, your mouth, before washing your hands with running water and soap.
Sounds like someone has the flu or the cold. Are the symptoms the same?
The symptoms are fever, coughing, sneezing, headaches, just like the flu. In some severe cases, you also have breathing difficulties and chest pains. Some persons also get pneumonia and kidney failure, and as you have heard the news, some people have died.
Wow. So how do I protect myself?
We have always been told to wash our hands with running water and soap. In the event there is no running water and soap, you use an alcohol-based hand sanitizer of at least 70% alcohol. Try your best to avoid touching your eyes, your nose, and your mouth. And in the event you need to sneeze and cough into a tissue, you throw the tissue into a bin. If you do not have tissue and you need to sneeze or cough, you do it into your elbow.
Yes, I heard that. So what medications can we take?
Well, as the virus is new, there is no medication or vaccine that you could really take to prevent it. What we really have to do is to practice infection control measures to protect ourselves.
Hey, people. I need to get a sweat. Let's get moving.
Let's do it, guys.
So, wait, how do I get more information?
Good, I have that number on lock, pal. For further information, contact the Bureau of Health Education at 468-5349, 468-5347, or 468-5342.
Let's defy limits! Woo! Come on!
Personal risk reduction is important. Germs are everywhere, and you can reduce your risk of infection by practicing some basic infection control measures. Taking the stairs, avoid touching the railing. If taking the elevator, ensure you use hand sanitizer immediately after exiting the elevator. Hand sanitizers with 60% or more alcohol are great to use, so have some readily available on your desk for quick use. Have your own personal bottle to carry with you when away from running water and soap. Germs can spread easily and be anywhere. Be sure to wipe down or disinfect desks, telephones, and keyboards. Washing your hands often will reduce the spread of germs, but you must wash them as recommended. Masks and gloves serve a purpose and provide protection when used in the recommended settings and when used correctly. They are not practical for the office or business place and can lead to the further spread of germs when used badly. Use only if you are coughing and/or sneezing or taking care of someone who is ill with flu-like symptoms. For more information, call the Ministry of Health and Wellness at 468-5347, 468-5349, or 468-5350.
In a world where germs are widespread, comes a group of superhero germ busters, the germaphores.
We spend most of our time fighting germs, every day of the week. After I play, I wash my hands. Before I eat, I wash my hands. After I play with my puppy, I wash my hands. I cover my sneezes with my forearm or elbow when I am in public. And I cover my cough to avoid spreading dangerous germs. We are the germaphores, germ-busting superheroes. You can be too. Always wash your hands and cover your sneeze and cough. Let's stop the spread of menacing germs.
We'll be back, germaphores, with more powerful germs.
And we will be waiting to prevent you from spreading.
Ah!
And welcome again. This is the Mid-Morning Show. This is Judy Deterville. This is really an interesting time in our history. If you're just tuning in, we've just had Mr. Winston Anderson with us, and we were going through a little bit of the impact, and I really mean a little bit of the impact on the hotel sector in Saint Lucia. He as the managing director for 3 Sanders Resorts on island, and he's wearing the hat as also chairman of the Tourism Enhancement Fund, the TEF. So he really has inside information in terms of how the industry has been impacted. And he was able to give a really nice synopsis, speaking from the position not just of team members working within hotels as direct employees and directly impacted, but certainly taking that outwards also now to taxi drivers, to the vendors, to restaurant owners who depended then on guests who would come into their resorts, into their restaurants to eat, to have lunch, whatever, a meal, to tour operators, so that even right down to a person who's operating a tour in St. Lucia has been impacted due to the virus coming to our shores. And you know, in as much as we want to think that St. Lucia is a beautiful country, it's a small island, and it's hidden, remains a hidden gem in the Caribbean. And so we have this standing joke, for example, that technology doesn't get to us until, you know, many years after. And so while the first world moves on and does whatever, we are waiting to catch up because, you know, we're smaller and all of those issues. But in this instance, this is really global, and every single person in the world is going through this. On a personal level, I was driving through Castries on Saturday, and along the John Compton Highway, I was able to look clear across the harbor, probably for the first time. And so I was able to see a couple of the tankers that are berthed way out at the bottom of the cliff at Tapia. I haven't seen that in forever. Well, never actually. Because usually the discussion is, well, there's at least one massive ship berthed in the harbor with the capacity of 3,000 people, including crew. This is non-existent. It's gone. So when you see that happen, and then you see that there are no planes coming in, and a Saturday was a busy day in St. Lucia at Huanora, because that's the biggest day for arrivals on island, and people are just coming in by the plane load. 3-4 plane loads of people are offloading at any one time on Saturday. That's not happening. You know that the world has changed around us, and the news is coming in from Asia and from other parts of the world that the world, our world, needed this to literally slow down and breathe, exhale. Because perhaps 3 weeks ago, let's go a month ago, the discussion was that climate change is the existential threat, and that's a quotation. An existential threat to life is what climate change was billed as. And within the last month, I cannot recall hearing climate change mentioned as any of the top 3 issues affecting our lives in the world, in our world. But certainly instead, it has become COVID-19 and the coronavirus. And this is the new existential threat to life on the planet, in our world, that is affecting us all globally, and we cannot over or underemphasize this, as every single person in the world. And of our population of 192,000, I just want to link this back to the Lenten sort of preamble that I gave. And so the Archbishop was saying that he gave the numbers to be about 120,000 people who are still Catholic in St. Lucia. And out of a population of 192,000 people, then that's probably about 65% of the population still who's Catholic. So he was trying to make us understand that it was the right thing to do to close the churches, because if one person in a church becomes sick, then the chances of spreading this among the population, among the Catholic population, is huge. That's more than half of St. Lucia's population. So in terms now of how do we deal with that situation, that's anybody's guess. So whereas the first world is trying to cope with a situation where people are falling ill and the numbers are large. So for example, at about 20 to 10 this morning, and I got this from a WHO website, there were 798,781 people currently infected, and of that, 38,599 had already died. Now, an interesting number as well to consider is that of those recovered, the number is coming in at 162,937. So when you look at that sort of contagion in the first world, and you're looking at countries like the USA topping the list, Spain coming in, Italy coming in, of course China, it's sort of, and I started to say earlier that we're hidden in the Caribbean, and so we're not dealing with COVID-19 on that kind of a front line. Our response is going to be, well, is different. However, if it is that we can contain our numbers, then again, our response is going to be different, and that's what we want in the Caribbean as a whole. Topping the countries in the Caribbean was certainly Trinidad, Martinique, Guadeloupe, the Dominican Republic. Those numbers were really high. And so we want again to be hidden where we are in Saint Lucia to keep ourselves as safe as possible by doing the right thing. And what are the right things? Simply is, if you have a travel history that you've been to any of the countries where COVID-19 has been impacting people, then you want to, as soon as you arrive, not to go through an illegal entry, an illegal port of entry, but rather, well, you shouldn't have come, but if you have, then you want to check yourself into a medical facility as quickly as possible, because you already would have put the captain of the boat, if there's a boat, a canoe, at risk. And then if you come into land and you go to your home, then the people in the home are also being put directly at risk as well. So if it is that you know someone who's thinking about coming home, that you can say to them, don't do it. It's safer to stay where you are rather than to come home, because then our little ports of entry that normally are not necessarily used as legal ports of entry will put us at risk in our smaller towns and villages where we live. We want to protect ourselves as much as we can. These are unusual times. Remember when I started, if you joined the program late, I said that I reminded us that this was Takawem, a wonderful time when we were thinking of eating, what's that thing? I've forgotten what it's called again. Was it not lababad? It is the lababad, yes. That's the time for eating lababad. Instead, we're thinking about protecting ourselves and wearing personal protective equipment, and it's just a different time in everybody's lives. So really, just to run through the numbers again, and I mean, time has passed. It's already an hour later when I said those numbers, when I got those numbers, it was 798,781 people infected across the world, of which Saint Lucia has 9 numbers. So in relation to population size, 9 is a lot. And so we hope that, watching the numbers, that we still have, I think the number was about 300 people in quarantine, and so those people would have been tested. And if it is that those results are coming in, then we can only sort of, hope for the best as far as that goes. But we do have some regular St. Lucian thoughts to share with you of just regular people and how they're dealing with the situation of COVID-19. I think we can play 1 or 2 of these tapes right now, yes? So I will go to that while we listen to some voices of people who have tried to share their feelings with us in terms of how they're dealing with COVID-19 from home.
I am a concerned resident of Choiseul. My name is Agnes King. Over the past few days, everyone is becoming increasingly worried about the coronavirus. Personally, I am taking all possible measures to protect myself, family, and loved ones. If everyone takes that approach, I am sure together we will keep this virus out of our healthy community. I urge all St. Lucians to please follow the protocol set by the government and stay at home. For the bars that remain open despite the advice given, I ask that they too stop and stay closed. Please, let's try to keep Choiseul safe and stay home.
Good day, everybody. My name is Saleh Dupree Camille, and I'm from the community of Corinth in Groseille. With regards to COVID-19, the people of my community, we adhere to the directives given by the Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Belmar, and our Prime Minister, Sir Alan Shastney. Social distancing at its highest level, especially when we go to the supermarkets. Everyone realizes that they can't come close to one another. When you walk into the supermarket, your hands are sanitized. So everybody, they realize that they have a key role to play to protect themselves and their family against this deadly virus. So this is what I'm seeing, that the people of my community, they are practicing the social distances. They're doing whatever they have to. You hardly see people, if I stay in my balcony, you hardly see people roaming like before. So they're taking it very, very seriously. And we all have our role to play in the fight against COVID-19.
Two people speaking passionately from two of our communities, one in Choiseul and one in Corinth. And as these programs progress, we'll be hearing more from these people, regular people, real people, who just want to share how they feel and how they're dealing with the situation of COVID-19, a new situation for all of us. And as I was talking earlier about things we've never seen, airlines have grounded for the first time. A fleet of airlines are grounded, of planes are grounded. I mean, you know, it was that we were learning from the history of what had happened in the 1700s, of when the Spanish flu had struck, of when all of these other major plagues had struck, the 1700s, the 1800s, and now we are this history, reliving it. It's us, it's our children. I just saw on Instagram today, the first child was born at the OKEU hospital. Refreshing, new, but a brave new world to be bringing a new life into. How do these parents feel? You know, how are you going to protect your child and hope that this child grows up, turns 5, turns 10? How do we manage today so that we can live to see tomorrow? Those are the questions that we ask ourselves at this time in our history, we who are making and living a whole new history. What are you doing? The issue is that you can be bored. Interesting conversation I had with a young girl, and she was saying that, well, okay, so I was eavesdropping on her conversation. She's saying that, so now she has to be at home all day long, and she cannot escape. There's nowhere to run, nowhere to hide, because at least she could run to work and, you know, she's at work and she's doing something specific. But now she gets up and she's at home, and she's at home cooking breakfast, and she's at home cooking lunch and supper, and then the next day she's at home again. Well, you know what? This is the time when we get to dust out the curtains and wash them out, because hallelujah, we have water like every single day, right? So utilize Wasco's water happily, wash the curtains, wash the sheets, just keep on washing as much as you can, because you never know, right? So that's one thing you can be doing. Somebody was saying to me that, you know what, he's gonna have to start planting food in his backyard. And that's something else we can consider doing as well, whether it's sweet potato or pigeon peas. That was something that grows fairly quickly and tastes good if you know how to cook it as well. So there's that. There is the bathing of the dogs. There is just the standing outside between 5 and 6 in the evening when there's a nice breeze blowing and you can watch the sun setting that you've not done in forever. So there was this young lady I work with as well, and she was saying she has 2 young children, and she sits and she has a view of the Castries Harbour and she can see the sun setting. And she's always busy because she's always working. Well, she says to me, you know what I'm going to be doing now? I'll be watching the sunset with my family. So it really is a time of introspection. It's a time of slowing down, of breathing deeply, which reminds me, I started to talk about the whole issue of the climate change. And the point I was making at that instance was that our world is breathing much better. So over China, for example, the air is cleaner. And over a lot of Asia, the air is cleaner. You can see blue skies for the first time in forever. So it's all of that we as human beings can really just sort of back away from the hectic pace that we've given ourselves and slow down and smell the coffee. Already we were known as a Caribbean people, always on Caribbean time, but even then we get caught up in the rush of things. So just slow down, breathe, enjoy the breath as you're taking it, and you'll find that, you know, in terms of your quality of life, there is a difference. So call your family, you know, talk to your parents, talk to your children, really listen to people. This is the time that we've been given to do this. And whatever else happens, you know what, we can say we tried, we did our best, and we've managed in spite of COVID-19. Our fight is going to be different because of where we are positioned in the world, and so we can only hope that our response will not be as frenetic or as frantic as it is in the first world. If we can contain our numbers, that's critical. So within our borders, closest to Saint Lucia, Martinique to the north, St. Vincent to the south, if we can contain those borders and the ports of illegal entry, then we might have a fighting chance. And even then, this is still the 31st of March. You're managing your resources carefully, remember, so that throughout the month of April, with less income, that you are really managing how you use your groceries and your supplies in home, because then come the end of April, it'll be a different ballgame altogether. And then if it continues based on what the changes are internationally, then we will see further changes coming at toward the end of the month of May. So all of these are issues that you must keep front of mind when you're running your homes. What are you doing this month end? What are you doing next month end, which is March, April? And even then in all of that, that it's still Takawem, that it's still a time of cleansing in a number of ways. And so these are the thoughts I want to leave you with today on the mid-morning program. Judy Deterville. I want to be back tomorrow morning. Again, we're looking at this really closely, and depending on numbers, how they change, we will all respond as well as NTN and take the necessary action that we have to take to keep ourselves safe. We want always to minimize the risk, and as you are aware, there are people out on the road still, and the message has to be that if you don't need to be out, then don't be out. Find things to do at home that can keep you occupied. Pull out a board game. I mean, I know families that have board games that have been existing for the last 40 years, right? Pull out the board games and play Ludo. There's snakes and ladders, for goodness sakes. There are games that exist that you can play and reconnect with literally one-on-one. These are my parting comments. The Mid-Morning Show with Judy Deterville. I'll try to be here again tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock. Join me then. Thanks and have a good day.